And it's not just a cultural difference as well. There's also a biological difference as well. So like men and women react and respond to and get depression in different ways. And so there's this thing called trait neuroticism, which women on average are higher in trait neuroticism, and this is because their nervous system is adapted to the role of motherhood, having to take care of children, raise very young children, infants under 9 months old, because at that time women do most of the work with breastfeeding and taking care of the child and making sure it survives. And so this allows them to have higher threat detection. So they're constantly scanning for threats to the baby's life, which allows them to optimally perform motherhood. But however, this leads to their nervous system being wired not optimally for daily life. So they're always like seeing threats, which leads to women having higher rates of depression, which is reflected in the statistics.
And also, based on that biological approach, one of you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. Even though women have high rates of depression, men have higher suicide rates, which is not the same. This might also be like that biological context, because men naturally are used to use lethal and physical force, So apart from we might address this in more depth later, but men are stereotypically taught to not appear as weak, and some people might perceive seeking help as weakness.
Yeah, and also I feel like men are taught to use a rational thought process instead of a emotional one, and that doesn't mean that men doesn't have emotions, but people look at it that way, so they neglect the men's emotions. When they feel neglected, they don't look out for help. They just keeping up all that to themselves, and they just piling up things that end up in suicide. Women tend to talk to somebody, and this is stereotypical view that women are more emotional. Also, like, makes them easier, like, to approach to someone else because it's socially acceptable. And I feel like this stereotype has built up that much, and that's the main reason men tend to kill themselves more than women.
So you think that men tend to keep all their emotions inside, they like repress them, they don't express them, they keep them to themselves, and it builds up over time, and this is what leads to higher suicide rates.
Yeah, I feel like that's
one of the
main reasons.
Yeah, it's definitely because I think this is a constant within all cultures. For example, if you go to the Afro-American communities, more specifically, maybe into the ones that were like the people that were raised in violent areas, men are like imposed to be strong because of their exposure towards gang violence, for example. So, as I previously mentioned, seeking for help is commonly and wrongly perceived as an act of weakness, even in Latin cultures as well. For example, in El Salvador, we used to be a country severely affected by gang violence as well. So naturally, people were raised to be tough, to appear tough against other people, because you cannot have that luxury of trusting someone in excess, So as a consequence, I do feel like overall, since the origins of humanity, men has always been seen as the providers, as the guardians of the family. But I do feel, yes, as you said, that's definitely not, it should not be the way, because even though men might naturally be more rational and women might be more expressive of their emotions, doesn't mean that men don't feel emotions.
Yeah, or that they don't have.
They don't have, because at the end of the day, depression, as I mentioned in the first moments of the video, I do feel like keeping everything to yourself greatly increases depression, because it's basically as any other illness. If you don't treat it the proper way, it's gonna get worse. And at the end of the day, someone who commits suicide in a certain way has nothing to lose, or has gotten into a point when they feel they have nothing to lose. Because, I don't know, you gotta reach to a state of mind so negative, in which you don't even value your own life. And I do understand that some people might have different struggles than others, but I do feel that that's never the solution, because at the end of the day, there's a saying that when you commit suicide, like the same, energy is not created nor destroyed, right? So if you commit suicide, you're not erasing the pain, you're just transferring it to other people. There might be the case where some people might have lost their families as well, but at the end of the day, you're not getting rid of the pain. It's just like transferring. For example, if one of us hypothetically committed that, we'll like make our family suffer, our friends suffer. So I do feel there's always an alternative to that.
Yeah, there's a good song lyric about that by this UK artist called Dave, and he said, "Suicide doesn't stop the pain; it only moves it." And I think that this perfectly describes what you just laid out, with energy being not destroyed but transferred. And so that's the advice that stuck with me the most throughout my years when I first heard that. And it's true that suicide may seem like the easy way out to you, but you got to think of the effect it has on other people who care about you, your family, your friends, people you interact with on a daily basis. Because your suicide not only affects yourself, but affects others around you. And I think you should really take that into account and like reconsider if you're thinking that way.
Yeah. Don't you all think it's also like kind of selfish committing? Because you are leaving all your problems to someone else, as well as the pain. Not only the pain is transferred, but the problems as well. Imagine you have a financial debt, and you commit because you cannot pay. Just gonna transfer it to a family member. It can be your son if you have a son, or your daughter, or even your parents. So I feel like I don't know who said it. I think Robin Williams, that suicide is just a permanent solution for temporary problems. And I feel like committing is kind of selfish in a way. So you're only thinking about your problems, what you're gonna leave to the other people.
Yeah, definitely it is. And now, I do feel like I do have this perception that your well-being is always the priority, but that is not the same as being selfish. And I do think that there's a point in your life when you're forced to not only live for yourself, but for others. For example, the moment you have kids, your life instantly their life should be your priority. And that might be the case because, for example, I do feel like some things cannot be forgiven. And I say this because there might be people who have like a conflictive relationship with their parents, right? But I do feel like you should always forgive others. Because I'm not saying that you need to forget, which is not the same. But even though some people might think, oh, this is unforgivable, I do feel like it is worth it, because at the end of the day, forgiveness heals you on the inside. Hatred, at the end of the day, the person who suffers the most when there's hatred in the room is yourself. It's like, there's a quote that says, hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die because of it. And I'm saying this because even if you don't have kids, you are your parents' kid, so their life, your life is basically their life. If you die, a part of them dies as well. So that's why no matter what, like, you always need to forgive others, and yeah, there's always different solutions for, as you said, nothing, no problem is permanent except death. And suicide is basically you forcing yourself to experience a permanent problem.
I think that's one of the solutions to depression and these suicidal thoughts is having a purpose in your life. Like what you just said, when you have kids, your life gains like a new purpose, which when it calls you to live for others rather than yourself. And then this helps you deal with your depression and your suicidal thoughts. And so I think in life, you really need to have like a clear goal and like set out steps to achieve like what you see as the highest good, that will give you meaning in life, and that will sustain you and allow you to keep moving forward even through tragedy, through evil, through difficult times, and that will allow you to just keep moving forward.
Yeah. What do you think is your goal, Aki?
My goal. Well, I've got short-term goals, obviously, and I've got long-term goals. Which in this stage of my life, my short-term goals are my highest goals right now, which is graduating from high school, going to a good university, finding a house, finding a car, finding a wife, someone to marry, and these are my highest priorities in life right now. But there's also like longer-term goals, which perhaps are more important, but I'm not the most focused on right now. Should be serving God and living a life which I consider to be virtuous and righteous, and yeah. What about you, Fran? What are your goals?
Yeah. As a comment on that, first of all, I do think that that might be the case why people see life as underwhelming to a certain extent. They might not have figured out why they're living, because they say being alive is not the same as living. And living life often requires you to have something in your mind, some certain goal or purpose, which is something that some people don't figure out at all at any point of their life. There's some people that I feel that live on autopilot, if we can say that. They're just living without thinking. They're just doing things because they're told to do so, or because they just feel, or
Good
they just
doing it.
they just feel good for it because they're told, oh, you can achieve this by doing that. That's why I personally feel that that linear approach of things, such as graduating, studying, getting a job, is that linear approach of things. I don't agree with it, because I do feel that if you do so, you're basically following the system's ideal goal rather than your own. And for me, I don't know, I've always been a person who rethinks his life and its purpose. And obviously, as you said, everyone has like short-term goals. For us, for the three of us, should be graduating, getting the best grades possible, and going to college, right? But I don't know, even doing so, I've always like have the thought, I don't feel necessarily satisfied with myself, like with my soul. And I do think that at the end of the day, you need to pursue what makes you the happiest in life. I think that's probably my goal in life. Being living my fullest, obviously in a responsible way. But I don't know, because imagine if you wanted to make music and you never fully experienced that opportunity to satisfy other people's other systems, you know? I do feel it's kind of sad. Imagine reaching your 70s and saying, oh, I would like to have done this. Because I do feel like regret is something really, really screwed up. Because, for example, sadness is temporary, but regret is the sadness that is linked to something you didn't do. And you obviously cannot change the past, So that's why that's the worst part of it. So I would say my goal in life is probably pursue happiness and try to live with the least amount of regrets as possible.
And you, Diego?
Yeah, I also like to think that one of my main goals is pursuing happiness, but I know that that comes a long way, because yeah, there are certain goals that are more specific, like graduating and all those things related to like yeah, high school, university, getting a job, getting paid, getting economical stability. But I feel it's really important to at least have those, because that's what give you a purpose in life. Even though we can argue that you are going to be within the system, or like within what everyone else do, you will probably be happy. Some people get happiness from other things, and that's the key part of this, because getting to those goals gives you fulfillment. That fulfillment gives you purpose, because you have achieved something. You have achieved something for yourself, not for others. So I would like to think of myself as someone that will achieve my goals, my personal goals, like in a way that I don't need to be told what to do. And gaining that independence from everyone else, knowing that we only have ourselves, I think that gives me like a reason to live. And like Francel, it's not the same just living, just existing, that having something to aim for.
And how do you think you figure out your goal and the meaning of your existence?
I try to think what makes me happy in everything that I do, in my day, in my week, in my month, and I try to look for those things. Try to look for those things in other aspects that I don't have right now in my life. So there could be an improvement. If I don't feel happy within my household or within some relationship I have, I try to think, how can I improve this? Rather than like saying, oh, I have this problem, I don't know how to deal with it, so I'm just gonna drop it, or like I'm just gonna give up. I don't want to give up on life, so I will try to look for solutions.
So would you also say that one of your like main ideologies of life is the constant pursuit of improvement?
Well, for me, I've got a really interesting answer about how we find purpose and meaning in life, but I think we should save that for the next episode. Looking at the time, it's getting a bit late. I think we should save it for next episode. So stay tuned if you want to see more. Like, subscribe, share, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
So yeah.